Hey friends, so following up on my how to get a good electric guitar sound using Ableton Live, I decided to go ahead and do how to get a good acoustic sound using Ableton. So first things first with an acoustic guitar, the first thing is recording the guitar and how you're going to mic it. I mean, maybe the first thing to go over even before that is should you mic or should you use your acoustic pickup if you have an acoustic electric guitar? Well, I find for the most part that acoustic guitar pickups, unless they're really, really well-made, high-end Fishman style with the microphone combined with the piezo pickups, I just don't like the sound. I've never enjoyed it. That doesn't mean that you couldn't use it. I just find myself, if I have an acoustic guitar idea, I'll use the pickup just to capture the idea. But if I'm going to record an acoustic guitar, nothing's going to beat mics, especially if you mic correctly. Now, this lesson isn't going to be a comprehensive lesson on different miking techniques for acoustic guitar, but of course you got to get it right at the source. So first thing, let's take a look at how I recorded this guitar. So I ended up using my Zoom H5, which with the XY microphone attachment to it. By the way, this is such a fantastic little thing. I find myself constantly using this. It's not so much that it gets the best quality, and these are just like cheap pencil condenser microphones. But what's so great about it is that you can use it as an audio interface. It's great for podcasting. I don't know, man. I'm not paid by Zoom to say anything, but this is such a great little thing. So anyway, I use this in combination with my classic SM7B, which is just one of my favorite microphones of all time. I sang into a lot of things until I started singing into this. I didn't discover my sound, and this is definitely my favorite vocal mic. It can also be used in other applications. It's really hard to get it wrong with this mic, especially if you use a little inline amplifier. So anyway, I put both of these together, and you can see from this picture where they're really close together, and they're both focused on the acoustic guitar. Now, one thing that I can say about miking, even though this isn't going to be a comprehensive miking tutorial, one thing I can definitely say is that I enjoy the way that my acoustic guitar sounds when I point a microphone at the 12th fret. For some reason, what's great about that is if you're pointing directly at it, you're going to get kind of the whole sound of the guitar with one mic. If you have multiple mics or you have XY mics like this, you can get kind of this nice stereo spread. Now you got to be careful. If you're the wrong distance from an XY mic situation, you're going to be miking the sound hole, okay? And that's going to make it boomy. And then the other side is not going to be as loud because that's not where the sound is projecting from, okay? So another thing that I went ahead and did is I recorded the guitar two different styles, obviously using my fingers and then using a pick. So let's go ahead and listen to the differences between these recordings. I did 4 different recordings, one where I recorded close with my fingers, far away with my fingers, close with a pick, and far away with a pick. Let's go ahead and listen. So let's go ahead and solo out some of these microphones and take a look and discuss what's going on here. So the top purple one is the Zoom H5, and let's go ahead and listen to, this is where I was close just playing with my fingers. Now what we can hear is, that there's a lot of bass on the left-hand side, right? And that's because that microphone was pointed directly at the sound hole, so you get that kind of what you would maybe describe as boomy sound, right? Okay, so moving on to the SM7B for this finger-style close, let's listen to this. Now, I didn't change any settings on the microphone itself. This is totally flat. You could actually roll off the lows or give a little boost. It has a little boost thing for like boosting the warmness of vocals. But I didn't have any of that engaged. It was just totally flat. Now, when you listen to this, I actually kind of like this sound. This is a nice warm tone. Obviously, the bass frequencies are wiling out, and we're going to get to that. But this is a pretty warm tone, okay? Sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty balanced. Now, when we go to the next section, let's listen to the H5s. Now Now that sounds really nice. The fingerstyle far away kind of sound from the H5 sounds really nice, and it sounds nice and balanced. Here's why. Now the reason that these sound a little bit more balanced is because we're far enough away from the microphones to allow the entire guitar body to project and hit the microphones kind of at the same time. There's multiple things going on here, right? There's brightness, there's the resonant body of the acoustic guitar, there's all that kind of stuff, and being a little bit farther away yields us a more balanced tone, and as you can see, the frequencies aren't wiling out as much, they're not going up and down. Obviously, that also has to do with how I played and if I played well or not. So moving on to where I was using a pick and I was up close, take a listen. Now we still get that thing where there's a lot of bass frequencies on the left speaker. That's not necessarily a problem. It really isn't a problem. It's just kind of what's going on, right? And let's go ahead and listen to this SM7B track. Kind of like that. It's kind of like the full Monty. I get tight bass response, and I also get the bright picking. All right, so then finally from far away. Now, to me, to my ears, this sounds the most natural of all the things that we've done. But also at the same time, there's a caveat here, and that's that I can really hear the room, okay? Because I'm picking from far away and I'm listening to the condenser mics at this point, the room is getting picked up, right? You're hearing the echoes off of my walls, okay? And you can hear that this is a 12 by 17 room, okay? You can hear the room in there. So if I'm doing a lot of compression here, the room might start to really take over my recording, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. So I decided to go for the close picking take, and the reason I decided to do that is not because I think it's the best recording of all of them, but because it allows me to show you some problem-solving effects we can use to make this guitar track sound better. So to reinforce that when you're mixing, you always should be listening to the mix when you're working on an instrument, I decided to add the drums that are going to go over this, and I don't really think there's going to be that much more instrumentation in this specific part. There might be some lead guitar, which I'll record or whatever, but let's go ahead and listen to this now. And actually, this is pretty funny. This actually comes from just me singing into the mic. I had this idea this morning, and I just decided to record clips about it. I'm like whistling the lead melody, right? And I should say that that's one of the advantages of Ableton Live. You can just, if you have an idea, you can get it down super fast, and then the ideas that you get down super fast, you can drag and drop them into arrangement view, arrange your song around it. The speed upon which you can get the idea out of your head and into the DAW is so amazing. And also, a really quick plug, I have a super comprehensive Ableton Live online course dedicated to this process, writing music, writing songs, using the technology available to us these days. Ableton Live is one of the most amazing things I've ever discovered for songwriting. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll leave a link in the description and comments. Anyway, back to it. So let's start problem solving here. First of all, let's listen to the H5 track. So we have... We can hear in this recording that there's a lot of bass in the left channel. And again, that's because the left channel H5 microphone was pointed at the sound hole. So you get that boomy whoop, whoop, whoop kind of sound in there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an EQ8 and drop it on here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mode, and we're going to switch it from stereo to left-right mode. What left-right mode does is it allows you to EQ the left or the right channel differently, okay? I think it's pretty obvious what I'm going to do next. If you look at the first filter on EQ8, is always a low shelf when you boot it up. So turning adaptive Q off, because that's annoying, I'm going to roll off some of these low frequencies that we have in the left side. So it'll sound like this now. Now listen as I sweep this up that it actually moves. You can feel it moving from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. Now what you want to do is sweep this around until you find a spot that feels good, like a sweet spot. Great. Now you can hear that when you find the sweet spot, there's going to be little subtleties that make your ear go left and right. There's something over here, there's something over here. And that's the nature of just air moving in different ways. And that's what's so great about using a stereo pair of microphones on an acoustic guitar. You get these subtleties, make these little subtle stereo things happen, right? Now I'm going to just use some gain compensation here. I'm going to turn this up a little bit because, these microphones are sensitive. And when I was that far away, I couldn't get as much of the sound that I wanted. So I just turned it up 4.5 dB. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so then moving on to the SM7B, let's listen to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sweep some of the low end out of this one as well. There's just a little bit of thud, if you will. All right, so let's listen to this, and I'm going to work on that. Yeah, around 160 hertz gives you that boxy kind of sound. And what is that boxy kind of sound? It's actually the body of the acoustic guitar. It's probably a resonant frequency going on. And I really don't need any of these sub frequencies either, so I could go ahead and sweep this out and kind of get this kind of curve. Okay, and I'll turn up a little bit of gain to compensate. Now we're going to combine these mics together. Let's take a listen. And I should say one other thing. With these H5s, I could grab a utility, okay, and drag it and drop it on here. And because the left and the right mic are hearing different things, I can actually add width by turning the width up. Now, I can't add width to the SM7B track because it's a mono track. It doesn't matter how much width I turn up. I could turn the width up all the way, it would do nothing. Okay? And just to prove that, here I'm on the SM7B track. It doesn't matter what I do with this. Right? But if I go to the H5 track, listen to this. Listen to all that width I have. That's because the left and the right mic are hearing different things. That's what stereo is. When one channel is doing something slightly different or very different from another speaker, you get increasing amounts of stereo, right? So now that I've got this width kind of jacked up, maybe I'll do it more reasonable, something like this. Let's listen to these together. Awesome. Sounds great. Now, the next thing that I'll do now that I've processed each one of these channels individually is I will group them together. Because now I'm going to provide processing that's going to be on both of the channels. And so now with these tracks grouped, I'm going to grab an EQ8 and drop it on here. I know I already have EQ8s inside of each one of the tracks, and maybe addressing some of these things could be done better in the tracks. But in this case, I want to do this for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that I'm using the EQs inside of each one of these tracks, one of these microphone tracks, to solve problems, okay? And then this EQ is going to be more tonal stuff, like what do I want the guitar to sound like, okay? And it helps me also because now like I was saying before, I'm going to start adding the drum track along with this acoustic guitar so I can mix in context with what I'm going to be working on, okay? So let's listen to this all together. So here we go. Now, one conflict that I'm sort of hearing is the acoustic guitar and the snare drum, the low part, the resonant body of the snare drum, are kind of playing the same frequencies, and it's kind of obnoxious to listen to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on that. That sounds pretty good. Now, in context with this mix, I'm also noticing that the acoustic guitar is kind of disappearing and coming back in because of my inconsistent playing and also just because of the nature of an acoustic guitar. And that's where a compressor comes in. And actually, that's where a good use of the glue compressor comes in because the glue compressor is designed to kind of take multiple tracks and homogenize them together, hence the name glue, right? So let's go ahead and look at using glue compressor to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Now, obviously, glue compressor isn't going to do anything if I don't pull the threshold down. Basically, the signal has to pass the threshold in order to start compressing, right? Now, as you can see, it's bouncing all over the place. We're going all the way to almost reducing 10 dB, right? So in this case, this ratio of 4 to 1, meaning for every 4 decibels that goes in, 1 decibel comes out, I think it might be a bit intense. So I'm going to bring this down to 2 decibels, okay? Let's listen to this now. And now, since we're kind of turning down an average of what does that look like, about 3 dB, I'm going to turn the makeup gain up to make up for that loss. Okay, so let's listen to this now. The attack sounds pretty good. I might turn it up a little bit more because I want some more of that, the initial picking of the guitar. I want a little bit more of that, so I'm turning the attack up. Now the attack sounds pretty natural. Now the cool thing also about Glue Compressor is these, I know it doesn't have a variable control, so you might feel like it's limited, but it actually has an auto release feature that actually shares, according to the manual, it shares 2 different release times. And these release times are automatically set based on listening to what the material is. I find that sometimes this actually sounds really great, sometimes it actually really sucks. Let's just see what happens. What we can see going on here is that there is, look how slow that is. What we can see that the release time is reacting very slowly. And with compressors, a longer release time usually means that they're going to be more and more transparent, okay? Meaning that it's not going to sound as compressored, if you will, right? Because the release time is how long it takes to get back to the original volume, right? So that sort of works. Maybe I'll try something a little bit like this 0.8 setting. Let's see what this is like. And that's kind of got this that's the classic Glue Compressor sound. It sounds gummy. Some people like to describe Glue Compressor as grabby, okay? It grabs certain things. It grabs transients that are wild and it grabs them, right? That's another way to think about it. So now you might be thinking, hey, Anthony, why don't you boost the treble? You know, this is an acoustic guitar. Boost 12K. Come on, let's go for it. Cool. If that's what you want to do, that's great. I'm thinking about the mix, though. In this case, I think maybe a better way to get more brightness out of this guitar is actually to look at something that you might not commonly think of. I'm going to grab an overdrive, okay? Now, check this out. If I play it just like this, it's going to be... No. That's not good. But what's cool is that I can focus in on doing something that is becoming a more and more modern mix tactic. And this is generating harmonics, okay? That's what saturation does. Overdrive is a saturator. But I can generate harmonics in a very subtle way to boost the treble. If I go ahead and just willy-nilly pull up, what is this? I'll make this a bell curve. If I just pull up, what's a common, 10K is a common, maybe even higher, 12K for acoustic guitar, you get that, the picking, right? I could do that, but what's going to happen is that in the areas where I didn't play those specific picky frequencies and areas where it's kind of more dull, we're going to get this situation where the acoustic guitar is now bouncing in and out of the mix again, okay? So instead of just default reaching for this, let's try to use the overdrive to do this. Now check this out. I'm going to make this is an EQ, okay? I'm going to just broadly boost the top end, starting from the presence area, which is, 4 or 5K, right? And I'm going to just broadly boost this. Now, if I play this, of course, horrible. But if I pull the dry wet control all the way down, okay? It's the same as having the overdrive off. Now I'm going to turn the dry wet up a little bit. Listen. Now, with just 8%, barely anything, listen to the AB. So that sort of works. I kind of like that. But you know what we could do? We could dial this in even more. We could bring this up to, I'm going to try to go around, 7K, and I'm going to roll off some of the top as well so that I'm kind of more focused in on this area right here. between, 6 and looks like it's starting to fall off around 12. Let's see what this does. So without it. It's almost like, let's listen to this solo, just so you really can hear what's going on. I'll play it from a different area. In fact, let's just repeat one specific area so you really can hone in on what this does. So without it. It's just a way of adding clarity. You might think adding distortion would add clarity. That doesn't make any sense. Well, what it's doing is it's creating harmonics, okay? And it's spreading those harmonics out in a pleasing way. I've got this whole area from what is this, coming up. It looks like it starts at 1K, goes all the way up to its peak area around 6 and goes down past 12. All of those areas we're adding harmonics. Harmonic distortion, and it's spread out across this whole thing, and it just makes it more smooth, okay? I like to think of this as a more smooth way to boost the top end, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and group these all together, and let's listen to the difference that we've made. So here's without these effects. Now, you might be like, well, that's a lot of distortion. And yeah, it is. I'm using the overdrive to really try to... I wanted to make it so that you could hear it. So really, in a realistic setting, I might have this more like 5 or something like this. But who knows? If I had a bunch of instruments going on here, I might be able to get away with a lot more dry wet on that overdrive, and I would get a better sound. So you might have noticed that I didn't reach for a reverb right away. And a lot of the time when people are recording acoustic guitars, they reach for reverb really quick. And the reason I didn't reach for reverb right away is because reverb has a great way of covering up a bunch of things that you did wrong. And so it's really important to get it right at the very beginning. And there's multiple inception layers of getting it right at the beginning. I mean, first of all, you want to mic correctly, okay? The next, you want to process correctly the signal itself in the insert, right? Insert meaning within the track. And then finally, we can move on to the return effects that are really going to send this sound, right? So let's just look at that. I'll dial in a quick verb setting. I want this on high. I don't want all the frequencies in there. I'm going to turn the pre-delay up a little bit because I want this to be a slightly larger space. I'm going to turn, decay time, that's probably a good setting right there. And maybe I'll make the room size medium. And let's go ahead and feed this guitar into here. I actually feel like that's too much tail. Maybe something like this. All right, let's see what it's like with the drums. Now you'll notice that adding all these tracks together kind of made the guitar shift a bit to the left. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the SM7B track, because it's a little bit darker than the H5 track, and shift it a bit to the right and see if that balances it out. Right? Okay, so you might have noticed these tracks down here. These are leads that I recorded. They sound like this. Now, when you're recording with the same mic, something you could do is just copy some of these problem-solving things that you did within each track and paste them into the other tracks. But I'm actually going to treat these leads a little bit differently. Because they're lead sounds, I kind of want them to be a bit more focused. And something else I should say about this is I only recorded the left side of the H5, the side that was pointed toward the sound hole, because I was just trying to see what would happen with that. I don't like it. So in this case, I want the leads to be more focused. So I'm just going to use the SM7B version of these recordings, okay? And what's so great about that is it's going to allow the leads to sound a bit more focused. The transients, this is a rhythmic lead. Da, 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 right? Now, there's a little bit of pick thud, is what I like to call it on acoustic guitar, meaning that there's some low end in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this into a group right away, okay? Now, the reason I'm doing this is because both of these tracks, for the most part, are making pretty similar frequency content, and there's no real big issues that I need to fix within each one of these. So I've made this group, and I'm going to call this group leads, okay? And what I'll do is I'll grab an EQ8, and I'm just going to take out some of that low end that I don't need, right? Now what that's going to do is that's just going to get rid of that pick thud, that those really low sounds when I hit the guitar on accident with my hand, right? Now something else is I'm going to try to focus in on what are the frequencies that the other instruments aren't making that I could make these leads make so that they have their own unique area. What it sounds like to me is that a presence boost is really helping these leads. Because the rhythm acoustic guitar has kind of has that bright kind of like saturation thing going on. I think a presence boost is nice. And I'll bet another thing that would be nice is to kind of take some of that low snare area out of this. And also because it's a lead, maybe another thing we could do, I'm going to change this into a bell curve, is just to give it a little bit of mid-range. Give it a little bit of 1K. Boosting this or cutting this frequency is sometimes superior to just turning a track up. Because what this will do is it just kind of forces things into the center of our hearing. And by boosting this frequency, you can kind of transparently turn something up without boosting too much of the top end or anything else. Just a great thing to try, as opposed to turning up a track, right? And now, of course, because there are two tracks here, I could pan these left and right a bit and get a little bit more space in the mix. So let's try 15 left and 15 right and see what happens. And of course, because these are in a group, I can send them to the reverb. All right, so with all this mixing, let's see what we got. Cool. Well, I know this was pretty long, but I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that this is useful to you. If you enjoy my teaching style and you want to support this channel, I encourage you to check out my Ableton Online Courses. I have one on songwriting with Ableton Live and the other one on mixing. These are not small courses by any stretch of the imagination. They're very comprehensive. They're very to the point. Sometimes it's difficult to find the information you're looking for on the internet because the information isn't always presented well. Sometimes it's not even correct, and a lot of the times it's not very well organized. These courses are thorough and optimized to take your skills to the next level very quickly. So yeah, check those out. And if not, if you want to support the channel, I also have all kinds of music on Bandcamp, and I will link everything in the description and comments. If you like this kind of thing, like, comment, subscribe. Much love, everybody. I'll see you next time.